Hello.
Attends, ils sont peut-être sur mute, James.
Ah, d'accord.
Okay, so you might all have been defaulted onto mute. So you might not be able to say hi back when we say hello to you guys and welcome to our little presentation sur les Buttes Chaumont that James has kindly offered to do for you guys today. So I'm just letting people in here as I speak.
So how many people do we have?
We have about 50 people who signed up, and then we'll see how many people actually show up.
Wow,
so for those who don't know me, my name is Victoria and I run the Alliance Française. And then for those who don't know James, James is actually my brother and he has been doing these presentations for us since the beginning of this year, James?
in March.
Okay, yeah. So this is the third Balade Parisienne. And this time James decided to focus on les Buttes Chaumont in the 19th arrondissement. So if you're joining us and you're not on mute, please put yourself on mute so that we don't have any funky background noises.
I can see that Roger is not on mute.
Okay.
And Jay Milner.
Yeah, so please put yourselves on mute.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And a little note, the presentation might run a little bit longer than 60 minutes. Maybe not, but it could happen. So just be aware of that, especially if we, when we take questions at the end. If you have a question at any point in time, you can go ahead and type it in the chat box.
And we'll take questions as we go along. I mean, I want this to be as conversational as possible.
Okay, so, but I don't want to interrupt you either.
When we go from stop to stop, we can stop and answer a few questions.
Well, let's do it that way then. Okay, so once again, if you're just joining us, welcome to the third installment of La Balade Parisienne. And this time around, it is a little stroll through the streets of les Buttes Chaumont, which is a beautiful little area north of Paris in the 19th arrondissement. And I am going to hand this over to James so that he can start.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I know you are on mute, but I hope everybody is doing well. Let me introduce myself. I'm James Minette. I am, as Victoria said, Victoria's brother, and I live in Paris, and I've been doing since March, every 3 months, a presentation from the perspective of a true Parisian. So I'm a freelance consultant and a coach, but also I'm a lifelong resident of Paris. And I have to say I'm a Paris enthusiast. And I'm thrilled to share with you my passion for Paris and give you the opportunity to discover lesser known parts of the city. So last time we went through the 5th arrondissement. So I'm going to be honest. For the moment, I'm letting you discover places where I've lived. So I used to live in the 5th. I used to live in the 19th. So when we were kind of brainstorming with Victoria on where could we bring you next time, it came very quickly to the idea that maybe the 19th and the Buttes Chaumont was the area to go. It's probably also an area that globally people don't know as well because it's not as central. There really are not that many things to visit. It's more like a residential area. So really we're kind of after the 5th, we're kind of going back to the roots of Balade Parisienne, the lesser known areas. Give you an idea of what really life in Paris is what it truly is, what it is to live and experience the everyday, the very bustle and bustle of the city.
He shouldn't be talking.
So just a little caveat. I am unfortunately under the weather. The weather in Paris has been horrendous, and it was just raining all day. And I just I'm a little congested. So I took antihistamines. So I'm a little woozy, but that to say that if I ramble at a few here and there in the presentation, that's okay. It's the medication. So that said, let's start. So what we're going to do today is walk in and around the Buttes Chaumont. So I'm going to tell you, so the Buttes Chaumont is this green thing in the middle of the map. It's, if you know Paris, Paris is a fairly, I'm going to say mineral city with very few open spaces, green areas. So within the layout of the city, even though it's not a huge garden, a huge park, it's still a significant amount of green and nature within the city. So so we're going to discover it, and it's a beautiful park. It's very interesting in its layout. It's very interesting in its architecture, and it's beautiful in terms of vegetation. So I'm very happy to give you the opportunity to discover this. So we'll start with kind of the history of the Buttes Chaumont and some of the main features. Then we'll go through the Rue Manin, which is one of the most the nicest streets in the neighborhood, and I think altogether of Paris, with beautiful, tall, sophisticated buildings. Then we'll just go entirely in a different neighborhood with the Buttes Bergère, which is probably the best hidden secret in Paris. Nobody knows about this neighborhood, very few people. So I'm happy to give you this kind of like a premium discovery of this place. Then we'll go back into the Buttes Chaumont and we'll focus a little more on the biodiversity within the park. Then we'll go into another different neighborhood, like a very completely different from the Rue Manin and the Buttes Bergère, the Rue de la Villette. Then we'll go in another neighborhood, le quartier de la Mouzaïa, and then we'll discover, like one of the many oddities of the 19th arrondissement, the Church of Saint-Serge de Radonèche, which is an Orthodox church hidden in the middle of the city. So I guess, so where are we? So first of all, let's kind of like try to situate us in the city. So if you know how Paris is, it's kind of like a round or kind of like a potato-shaped city. So we are in the northern part of the city and going towards the east. So if you remember where we were the first time we met, we were here. That's the 18th. That's Montmartre here. And then last time we were around here, around the Pantheon. So look, like on close to the river in the center of the city. Now we're going back up and we're definitely going towards the east. And just to give you the idea in the way the city is structured and how the populations are distributed around the city, the western part of the city has always been more affluent, richer. The nice neighborhoods are situated there. If you visited Paris, you know that the Arc de Triomphe is here, the Parc the Place de la Concorde, the Tour Eiffel. And if you visited that, you know that the buildings are usually very large, spacious. A lot of wealthy people live in these neighborhoods. And the eastern part of the city is more working class. So it has, I'm going to say, a little less cachet than the western part, but I believe that it really is as interesting as the western part. It's maybe less pretty to look at, but I think it's as interesting to discover and to explore. So here are a few faces of or areas or snapshots of the the 19th arrondissement, not necessarily around the Buttes Chaumont, because the 19th is a big area, but the Buttes Chaumont is smaller. But just to give you a few images, snapshots of what the 19th looks like. So you have here, this is the Quartier de la Moussaïa, where we are going to go further later in the presentation. Here you have the Quartier des Orgues. So orgue is an organ, and these big buildings were called by the architects, and they were one of the first very modern in the 60s, projects of huge buildings of modern architecture. And it really is also one of the prominent features of the 19th, this constant coexistence of the modern and the old, and by definition, and because of that, of the young and the old, the rich and the poor, the clean and the dirty. And I guess that's the reality of all big cities, but I think you really have the essence of life in Paris in the 19th, where like this kind of constant contrast and at the same time peaceful coexistence of all these different elements. Here you have something around, I think this is at Belleville, where because it's a younger, more working class, and definition attracting a lot of more artistic personalities. You have a lot of street art, a lot of urban art. Here you have, I think this is also Le Quartier de la Moussaïa. So again, this is also like, speaking of coexistence, you really have the coexistence of this idea of extremely urban areas and really smaller village-like areas. So I think that's also an interesting part of it. The 19th is, nothing looks the same. You're always going from one experience to another, and that's what makes it very interesting, because you're constantly surprised. And here you have the Rue de Ménilmontant, which is, as you can see, a long and really goes very far up. For like in terms of elevation, actually this neighborhood, the 19th, is the highest part, has the highest part of the city. It's around the Ménilmontant and Télégraphe. So really, when you're going up Rue Ménilmontant, you have the feeling you're basically climbing a mountain. It's really steep. So the Buttes Chaumont. So the Buttes Chaumont, as I said, is a park inside of Paris. It's an urban park, and it really is a haven of vegetation, nature, and pure air. And it really is one of the most romantic areas of the city. When I was preparing this presentation, I went there, like, I think maybe early August. It was a beautiful day. It was really hot here at the end of July. So it was like 40, I think, which is like maybe 100 degrees, which is probably nothing for people in Tucson, but here it's just impossible. We go crazy. But it lasted 2 days, and then it rained, and it was really cool. And maybe for 3 or 4 days, you had beautiful sun and really cool temperatures. And I went to the park, and it was just so divine. And you have, so a lot of people from the neighborhood come here because it's at the center of the 19th. It really is an area where families, friends can congregate and really have a good time and enjoy the pleasure of living in Paris. So it was created. So let me just move this because I can't see my text. So it was, so let's go back and give you a little bit of history. So I'm going to try to keep the historical details to a minimum. I think last time was a little bit too historical and not enough life. So it's going to be more life and less history here, but still, you always need to give a context. You need to situate the story. So it was developed in 1867 for the Exposition Universelle. If you know what a Universelle Exposition, those were like big events that were organized throughout Europe, and I think also in America. I think there was one in St. Louis in the like 1910s. It's something that really was popular before the First World War, and after that maybe stopped. But it was this opportunity to showcase a country's technology, culture, sophistication, wealth. And it was very much something, it was like organized every 5 years throughout Europe. The Eiffel Tower was built for that, I think for the Exposition Universelle of 1867. So it wasn't just like a show, it was just really this opportunity to strive and create extraordinary things. So you had the Eiffel Tower and the Buttes Chaumont were created. So this is the shape of the Buttes Chaumont. So let me just give you, where's the north? I think the north is on the other side. So it's, I should have shaped, put it around. It's a little confusing to have the north on the bottom side going toward the bottom of the screen. But nevertheless, that's just a detail. So it is shaped like a cone, or more like a cornucopia. Like you have the feeling that abundance is going to spring out of the gardens, and it's not that big. I mean, if you compare it to Central Park or Hyde Park in London, it's tiny, but it's full of different features, and it's very much it was a project, a development. This park did not exist before man decided to turn it into a park. This is not true. It has become true nature, but at the time it was more a project to showcase the sophistication and the efficiency of French engineering. So you have the shape. So you have here, and we're going to go through all of the details, but you have at the center a lake, and you have like a big artificial mountain that really towers throughout the rest of the park. And you have like little mountains everywhere, and different buildings here and there. So it was very much organized to be an area of pleasure and an area of entertainment for the population of Paris. So, and maybe I did not say, so what was the Buttes Chaumont before it became the Buttes Chaumont? So as I told you, the 19th, the eastern part of Paris was, let's say, more working class. And because it was working class, it wasn't great, because we're talking about 1850, 1860, where living conditions were not fantastic. So there was, of course, and we talked about it when we went to Montmartre, all of these hills were quarries for stone and gypsum, because a lot of buildings were, like Paris was in full development, a lot of buildings were being constructed using stone. So these, like Montmartre, the Buttes Chaumont was also like a big quarry where most of the stone from Paris was taken, which turned it into a very porous and a very hollow structure. But the gypsum, they ran out of gypsum very quickly and decided that they would turn it into a landfill. So for over 50 years, the area that has become the Buttes Chaumont was a landfill. So, and with working class living around. So it was not great. It was not a great thing, but nevertheless, they decided to turn it into a park. But it required it was an incredibly ambitious project, and required remarkable skill and remarkable effectiveness from hundreds of specialists from all over the world and France. So what they needed to do, of course, was cleaning up and transforming the landfill. So that's the first thing. Then they needed to, because they had taken so much gypsum out of the quarry, the whole structure was not very, the cliffs were not particularly solid. So there was a lot of engineering put into stabilizing the whole quarry in order for it not to fall, to collapse. Then they decided that because it was a project, it was a man-made project, they really wanted to, I mean, if you know a little bit about like architecture and art at the end of the 19th century, it really is about showcasing man's ability to control nature. And very much this idea that we're going to create nature through the engineering and technology of man is very much ingrained in that moment in time. So the idea of creating a cave from which a waterfall would flow and feed a lake. Then erecting a rocky peak of 15 meters high in the middle of the artificial lake. So they created an artificial lake, and then they created like a fake, an artificial mountain. And on top of that artificial mountain, create an artificial Greek temple called the Temple of Cybele, which is a reproduction of the Temple of Vesta in Tivoli. And then you would connect everything through state-of-the-art footbridges. So it's a very intricate, probably very costly project. And now, while I was giving you that description, it really reminds me of Disney World. It really is, without a lot of the amusement park area parts that characterize Disney Park. It really is this kind of like totally artificial, man-made park. And I'm not disparaging it. I think it's a beautiful creation, but just appreciate the amount of energy and skill and efficiency that was required in creating this the Buttes Chaumont, which makes it today probably one of the most interesting parts of the city, just in terms of human experience. So what we're going to do is we're basically going to, we're going to walk around the park, but I'm just going to show you some of the main features. And here we're going to focus really on man-made features, things that were made by the engineers at that time. So as you can see, really front and center of the park is the lake. So it's really not that big. But even if it looks, if you know that it's man-made, it still looks incredibly natural. I think that's because of the gorgeous nature that was given the opportunity to thrive. Even if man created the space, really the plants and the trees and the flowers took over and really made the Buttes Chaumont into the wonderful space that it is today. So you can, I'm not sure you can actually, I don't know if you can take, I don't think there are boats, because it really is, I think it's very hollow and it's not that big, but there are a lot of people all year round. A lot of people run around it. It's kind of like a Central Park miniature. And one of the other great things about the Buttes Chaumont is that dogs are allowed in the Buttes Chaumont. So it really is a place where a lot of dog owners, meet and talk. And also there are a lot around the lake. There are a lot of birds, ducks, geese, swans. And if you're like me, because I was, you have to be careful with your dog. I went with a dog to the Buttes Chaumont and he nearly jumped into the water because he wanted to play with the ducks and the geese. So you just have to be careful, but it really is quite a marvelous and enchanting place. So this is the view from the other side of the lake. So you see, you can also walk on the lawn, and there is a very welcoming and carefree vibe at the Buttes Chaumont. A lot of parks in Paris usually are very there are a lot of things that are restricted. You can't walk on the lawn. You can't bring dogs into the park. You can't eat, you can't picnic. Here, I'm not saying everything's allowed, but it's a lot more open, a lot more, and it really is a place for people to feel comfortable and enjoy themselves. So here again, you have it probably is, you know, you're seeing all these incredible trees and nature, and it really is such a striking feature of the Buttes Chaumont. So another view of the Temple of Cybele. So this is an artificial mountain. So it was built from scratch. It wasn't there before. Just for you to know, so you see people on top of it. Now this area is condemned because, unfortunately, like a lot of man-made creations, they don't really last that long. And I think now it's going to be closed off to the public for a long time because they're considering how they can totally reimagine the thing without destroying it, how they can make it sustainable without completely changing the area. So I think that I've read a little bit on the net about it, and they're not really sure how to move about it, because if they continue admitting people, it's going to fall and it's going to become dangerous. But of course, having this closed off forever, and they don't want to change it. So they're kind of, what should we do? So it's still very much a project in a story, an unfolding story. But as you can see, it really is a beautiful, a very striking feature of the park. And really, in Paris, you don't have Greek temples in Paris everywhere. It really is probably the only one, even if it's artificial, made by French people, not at all Roman nor Greek. And I think we have here a better view of the temple. So it really is, so it's based on a real temple in Rome, or Tivoli. And when you were able to enjoy it and visit it, you had a gorgeous view on all the northern part of the city. So it really was beautiful. It's really unfortunate that it's not open to the public anymore, but I think that if it's unsafe, it's better for everybody. So so of course, as I said, a lot of different restaurants. This park was created to offer enjoyment and entertaining to people. So a lot of different restaurants all over the park. And I think it's interesting to maybe you start noticing it a little bit. There is an overall feel in the Buttes Chaumont and a little bit everywhere in the 19th of not necessarily German, but kind of like Swiss Alpine type of architecture. This feels like a restaurant in Austria. So this idea of German resorts, going to I'm trying to find my words, but going to like resorts in Germany, in Switzerland, etc., which was very much a very trendy thing to do at that time. So I think there is the desire to emulate all of that experience with something, and also the idea that in this area, like in the mountains, the air is purer. It's like life is healthier. People are happier because you are in the mountains. And also it's the ability, the possibility of offering a completely different experience from Paris, which is a very urban, relatively flat experience. Here you are in the mountains and everything is different. So there was something very much like an amusement park. And here you have the guardhouse. So that was the little house that was dedicated to the person in charge of the Buttes Chaumont at the time when that position still existed. Now they don't live there anymore, and I have no idea who lives there. It's maybe I don't know if somebody lives there, but it's a really, really charming little house. Again, with this idea of brick, which is very, very German, if like reminiscent of Northern architecture, like these red bricks. So I tried to find what was the influence in terms of architecture. There, I didn't find anything, but I always feel that, like it feels like you're in Germany when you're at the Buttes Chaumont. So that's interesting. So let's just kind of like pop out of the Buttes Chaumont for a few minutes, well, I mean, for a few minutes, and discover other features of the 19th arrondissement. So if you walk along, not going in, but kind of like walking along the Buttes Chaumont, you're going to walk along one of the nicest streets in Paris called the Rue Manin. So the Rue Manin is, so let me just, again, move my text, and I went too far, sorry, let me go back. So it runs from l'Avenue Simon Bolivar and the Rue Crimée, so it's a very long street, and it was developed at the same time as the Buttes Chaumont, and the nom Manin was Daniel Manin was the president of the Republic of Venice between 1848 and 1841. I have no idea why they chose that name for the city. Try to look at it. I mean, I don't know if he was a friend of the 19th or if he gave money for the development of the project, but that's, I think, lost in time. But still, the name is still there, and it really offers one of the few areas where you have many different architectural styles, because a lot of the architecture in Paris was developed at the same time through common projects. You have a lot of uniformity in architecture, and having places where you have different, yet they're similar in their structure but very different in style. That is fairly rare. And I think, and I was again there's not that much information on Rue Manin, but I can only my hypothesis is that because, and if you see that's the third paragraph, in 1918, during the war, the 19th, because it was on the eastern part of the city, was bombarded. And there were areas in this neighborhood that were actually destroyed by huge bombs. Like the Grosse Bertha was like a huge cannon that was able to throw launch a cannon, huge bombs. Sorry, again, I'm a little woozy.
Cannonballs.
I was like cannonballs. I don't know, but at least huge bombs on Paris, which shows like the power of the German artillery at the time. And so it's one of the few areas that has been destroyed by war. Paris is famous for having kind of survived all of the different wars relatively unscathed, but here you have an area where actually there are some of the areas of Paris were destroyed. So it was the opportunity to to rebuild certain buildings and try new architectural styles. So let's just walk through some of the main buildings of the Rue Manin, and I will kind of, as much as I can, give you a few pointers on why Parisian architecture is so specific, so prominent, so elegant, and at the same time so ingrained in the Parisian experience. So if you've ever been to Paris, like most buildings in, let's say, nice areas are structured in that way. They're usually 6 or 7 stories high. They're usually there are 2 apartments per floor with an elevator that connects all of the different apartments. In the nicer buildings, you usually have like a 6th or 7th floor, which is dedicated to small rooms, which that's where the help used to live. And they're still today called chambre de bonne, the maids' rooms. And because of the overall structure of these buildings, the most prominent stories were the 1st and 2nd floor, as because it was the ability to showcase your wealth, your prestige, because people could see into your apartment, but also, and that's what Victoria pointed out when we were talking about it, is that because there were no elevators at the time. So living on the first floor and the second floor was less tiring than living on the fifth floor. And really the way the buildings were structured was that the more you went up, the more working class the building became. So the less wealthy, the less affluent the building became. Now, standards and desires and needs have totally changed. Now people want higher up apartments, the penthouse, because they're more isolated. You don't have nosy neighbors looking into your apartment. You don't have the noise, the hustle and the bustle, because again, I think I say it every time, but Paris is an incredibly noisy city. So you're more isolated. So now living on the fifth floor, living on the fifth or the sixth is where you have like the more expensive apartments. So there's really a change. But because of these buildings are so spacious and so well put together, they can accommodate those different the changing trends in terms of expectations and needs. So here is the layout, the blueprint of a typical Parisian apartment. So this is like no, it's not a typical one because this is a big apartment. But if you were to go into the building, into one of the buildings on Rue Manin, you would find apartments like that. So you just imagine that you have an apartment on the other side, probably separated by this, I think, probably, or maybe this. Anyway, you would have, no, it would be here because you have the central courtyard that is on this side. So here also, okay, I'm figuring that now. So you probably have the street is running there. So Rue Manin is running there. And you have another building on this side connected through this and this with a central courtyard. You have the apartment is divided into 3 areas. You have the main rooms, which are the rooms where people would welcome people, would organize parties, have dinner parties. And those were like, reception areas where you showed your wealth and your prestige. These were like the living quarters. And this is a big apartment with like 3 bedrooms and maybe a 4th bedroom here. So this is like a big area. It might seem fairly small compared to American standards, but this is like a really big apartment. So this is like a very well-to-do, wealthy apartment with a big family and a lot of money. And you have on this tiny corner, probably that's where the kitchen would be and some of the amenities. So also very typical of a Parisian apartment, very few bathrooms, very few amenities, tiny kitchen. So this is like a new layout. So but like if you go back into 1870, you would find probably the kitchen would be here and there would be 1 bathroom, very few amenities because everything was dedicated to showing off in the reception areas. And so there's like a huge unbalance between how much space you have dedicated to ballrooms, reception areas, and to actual hygiene and living areas. So that's a typical, very much a typical Parisian apartment. And you probably have this layout in buildings, Rue Manin. So here you have a more modern, probably dating from the 1930s, probably built after the First World War, maybe to replace one of the buildings that were destroyed by the Big Bertha. So very typical of that area, also red bricks and a more geometric, reminiscent of Art Deco type of architecture, like stronger lines, less decoration, less detail, but as nice, as spacious. And here you have now you're kind of going back in time. This is like a Belle Epoque, around the 1900s building. like what's really striking here is how uniform, how homogeneous the facade is. And I think you see the changing trends. There's less of a focus on the first and second floor and more focus on the fourth and fifth floor. So this is probably at a time when elevators were invented. I think they were invented around 1900, if I'm not sure, but it seems likely. And so like the nice apartments went up to, and again, technology changing the habits and the needs and expectations of people. So here you have the balconies on the fifth floor, the nice windows on the fourth floor. So the focus goes onto those new areas. So here you just have a detail, something you can see from the Buttes Chaumont. So this is a beautiful Art Nouveau building. It's probably one of the older buildings. Here you have gorgeous details. First of all, the roofs, which are so unusual in Paris. They really seem German or definitely Eastern European in these very, very delicate features. A lot of decoration, flowers, ornaments, beautiful metalwork here, and a beautiful stonework I'm not sure, it's probably like the fifth floor, the sixth floor, but really exceptional architecture and really one of the nicer buildings on Rue Mana. And it really, again, that's really what makes Rue Mana such an exceptional place. The richness of architecture and the different experiences they offer. And here you probably, I'm sorry, the picture is not great. I took it myself, but it's, this is probably the most famous buildings, Rue Mana. It's this like really angled building. For me, it really reminds me of the Flatiron building in New York. This like very thin building, beautiful, with a lot of rounded details. This is definitely the Art Nouveau initial Spanish style, where everything was kind of round, more sensual than the previous buildings we saw, with a lot of rounded details, like the rounded balcony, the rounded roof, the dome. Everything is more more feminine and more again sensual. Beautiful. And the buildings probably here, because the building is smaller, I'm not 100% sure you would have you probably have like one big apartment here and maybe a smaller one here, but probably there's like one really main apartment, which probably is over 2,000 square feet. So really, really big apartments. And you have one, two, three, four. So 7 floors. And here again, you can see that probably it had an elevator pretty quickly because the nicer apartments are higher up. So I think it's time to leave. Oh, no, it's not. So again, a lot of the 19th is really fun because there are a lot of really odd buildings, you know, things that you would not expect in Paris. So you have a Lutheran church. There probably was a German community there in Paris at one point. And there was probably a small Lutheran community, and they have today the only Lutheran church still providing service and mass. It was closed at the time where I went, but it's still open to public, but the Lutheran community in Paris is probably minuscule. And you have, we talked about it like when we spoke to you during the presentation in March, the famous Fontaine Wallace, which were given by the famous businessman and millionaire George Wallace English. He gave, I think, over 100 fountains that really populate the whole city. And it's really one, so here you very much have the Art Nouveau style. Everything is round, everything is flowery, everything is sensual, and it really is probably one of the most, and it's reminiscent of, like, if you've seen the metro, the entrances of the metros, there's still a lot of buildings that are built in that beautiful style. And that's really one of the main features, like the most famous features of Paris. And to finish our exploration of the Rue Manin, you have another building, which this is a hospital. It's the Hospital of Rothschild. So it was founded through the donations of the famous Rothschild family, the French branch. If you know a little bit about the story of the Rothschild, it's like they basically had families, branches everywhere in the world. So you had one in New York, one in London, one in Germany, and one in Paris. And so the French branch of the family founded this very prominent hospital. I think it specialized in eyes and throat surgery. And but the hospital is important in itself, but it's not really why I took the picture. It's again for the architecture. Here again, I don't know if you agree with me, but it feels very German. It feels like you are looking at like a northern townhouse or town hall. It feels like you're either in Belgium or Holland or Germany. So again, I didn't find any proof that. I don't know if it's just an impression or if it's a reality, but this architecture was very prominent at the end. So it was opened in 1902, and the clock was created at that time. So very much into the Austrian decadent style. And really an interesting building altogether with like the different colors, the brick, very beautiful. So that's the Rue Manin. Are there any questions? Oh, I can't hear you.
Just a question from Karine, who wanted to know if you had been to the top of the Buttes Chaumont,
Yes, I went there a long time ago when it's still open. It's very nice. It's very nice. It's very nice. I mean, you're not visiting a Greek temple, so it's it's beautiful it's a little anticlimactic because a lot of it is renovated. There's a lot of concrete, and it's also there was a huge population going there, so there was a lot of wear and tear. But it's such a striking part of the city that kind of all of those misgivings kind of like evaporate when you just are in the middle of and seeing the beautiful view. You're in a unique place, and that's why for me it's so sad that the whole area is restricted now, closed off to public.
Okay, so two little things, James. It's 45. So you've been talking for 45 minutes.
Really?
Yes, and you need to turn a light on.
Yes, sorry.
You're starting to disappear.
My God. And it's been 45 minutes?
Yes. Time flies.
Okay, sorry. I'm going to open it.
Victoria, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Hi. I had two questions about the names of streets at the very beginning. And when James showed us the photographs of 6 photographs, I think, on the screen, there was one that was very, very steep. And James said it was the highest, highest.
It's Rue de Ménilmontant.
I'd like to know the name of that one.
Sure, I will type it.
I don't understand. Say it again, please.
It's the
Ménilmontant.
Neil Mont Blanc?
No, Ménilmontant. MENILMENTAT.
I'm going to write it down.
Sure.
I'm going to put it in the chat, Joan.
Thank you.
So you'll be able to see it.
Okay, and how about the one that had the very large buildings, modern large buildings? It seems to be
that's the modern buildings.
Yes.
So that's Rue de Flandre. So Flanders, Flandre. Wait.
Yeah, the chat would be good.
And the buildings are les orgues.
Les orgues.
Les orgues de Flandre.
Like ogres?
No, like organs.
Oh, okay.
No,
The-
no, like
the
the
instrument.
instrument, not the organs, not the
Not the liver and the
not the liver and the heart.
the
No, no.
lungs. Yeah.
No, that's organe, but les orgues. So the
Mm.
buildings are called des Orgues de Flandre, and they were built on Rue de Flandre, which is an area that was completely renovated and developed after the war. So now it's a very modern part of the city.
All right,
So-
James. So you better move on.
Wow,
on moving.
I'm so
Woohoo!
sorry. I mean, I'm extremely chatty. Sorry. Okay.
We hadn't noticed.
Okay. So I'm going to go quick. So Place Buttes Bergère. So the Buttes Bergère is really, so you have this kind of like very open, very bourgeois neighborhood with the Rue Manin. Here you have, and you're basically walking 10 minutes, like maybe 5 minutes. So you're really going from one extreme to the other, from one experience to another. And what's interesting with the Buttes Bergère, I think, you know, it's a beautiful place and the architecture is interesting, but it really is completely isolated. When I speak of the Buttes Bergère with my friends, nobody knows what I'm talking about. It really is, as I said, one of the best hidden secrets in the city. And why is it? Because basically, if you see my map, there really is only one street that allows you to go into the neighborhood. So this street here that goes up, and then you have like 3 or 4 little streets, and that's all. And if you want to leave, and you can only leave this through this part with a staircase, stairs, and there's another set of stairs here. So it really is completely isolated, and because of that, it feels that, you know, when you're going up, you are entering a place, you know, apart from, you know, the rest of the city, from the hustle bustle of the city, and it really is quite a captivating experience. So I'm going to go very quickly. I spent a lot of time on the Buttes Chaumont. So here, the story is kind of the same. It was a different part of the quarry and the landfill, and it was developed by other promoters. Here, they decided to create an amusement park. You know, that's very much what was the trend at the time, to show the technology. The rise of a middle class, you know, made the need for entertainment and a distraction a lot more important. And it was definitely like one of the goals of many developers to provide that amusement, provide that enjoyment. So there were a lot of different amusement parks that were created all over Europe at the time. And one of them was this idea of les folles buttes, so the crazy hill. And as you can see, it was full of different, here, it's not even a comparison with, not analogy with Disney Park. It was the Disney Park of the time. And it was extremely popular with a lot of cafes, cabarets. And I think at the time, movie theaters cinema was being developed, was created. So it was like a center of entertainment. And remember, this is very much a working class neighborhood. So, but they were working class, but their income was increasing because technology was making a lot of things easier. So like the income dedicated to entertainment and pleasure was available. So all of these areas were very much part of the everyday life of these neighborhoods, of this neighborhood. Unfortunately, like Montmartre, like many areas of Paris, because there had been quarries and then landfill, the whole area was extremely unstable. So in 1926, the developers saw that, you know, it was taking so much money to keep everything up to standard that they decided to close and destroy the folles buttes. So another developer came along and decided to create like a more sustainable project and developed the Buttes Bergère. So a small neighborhood constituted of small because again, because the ground is so unstable, you can't build big buildings like Fumanin. You have to be very modest. So 1 or 2 story high buildings or small townhouses. And that's why you feel so, it feels like such a different experience when you enter this, this place. So again, I think like a recurring theme throughout this presentation is like the presence of nature, of trees, of vegetation all over this neighborhood. So I'm just going to go through a few pictures. So it's charming. It's not in the best, in the best state possible, because it's very much a residential area. There's no restaurant, no type of no cafes. So it's very much like the inhabitants on their own, and it very much it hasn't lived in a feel. But I love it because it's incredibly quiet. It's such a relief and a peaceful experience. No cars. So again, also what's striking here is that you have a lot of colors. You have pink, you have red, you have green, and that's so different from the rest of Paris, which tends to stay in the monochrome or of beige and gray. Here you have like color. It's vibrant and it's different. You have also a lot of, because you have small townhouses, you have a few interesting architectural projects, and you have one of them. Again, I think they're like using the red bricks, I think, as an homage to a lot of the architecture around the neighborhood. And here you have the small pink townhouse. Probably they're probably small spaces. But as you can see, you have an Aston Martin here. It doesn't mean because they're modest houses that these houses probably cost in the millions of euros. This house here is probably 1 or 2 million euros, because having a townhouse in Paris is probably the epitome of luxury. You really have, it's extremely rare, and a lot of people would like to have access to it. Unfortunately, there are not that many people who have 2 million euros to spend. So, but it's still, even if it's a modest neighborhood, it's still wealthy in terms of Parisian standards. And I love the different details. You have like this little mosaic of bricks here. You have the red bricks, you have white, a lot of color. I really like it. And everything, no building is the same, which is interesting. Here you have, so from the gardens of the Rue Bergère, you have this incredible view on Montmartre, which you know well, since we explored it together in March. And I think another view of Montmartre at this time at sunset. So, and here that's the stairs you take to leave the neighborhood. I had many pictures just to show what was in front of it, and it's basically a big modern building. So really, when you're walking along the street here, which is the Rue Simon Bolivar, you have no idea that the Buttes Bergère is hidden behind the building. So I discovered it through a friend, and I had no idea. I had never heard of it, never. So it really is, next time you're in Paris, take the time to discover it. It takes, it's like a 30-minute walk. It really is small. So now, and let's move forward, let's go back to the Buttes Chaumont, and I just want to give you the opportunity to discover another side of the Buttes Chaumont, which is like the incredible flora that is part of the Buttes Chaumont. So it's a sanctuary for biodiversity. There are over 2,500 trees in the Buttes Chaumont. So many different many different trees, and some of them are considered, so this is not the best translation, sorry, but remarkable trees. So I mean, they're like trees of interest. So they're either extremely old or extremely high. So let me just give you a few pictures. So this is probably one of the most striking trees. It's like a giant sequoia, obviously. It's over 40 meters high, and like the trunk is like over 5 meters around. So it really is an incredible, huge tree. And see, you can, and it's available to anybody who is interested in sitting in the park and discovering the park. So here you have the one of the oldest trees in the park, which is the Sephora Japanese, planted in 1873. So this tree is over 150 years old. You have another view of it, which is probably at spring, where it's like the leaves are greener. It really is a beautiful tree, and it really shows like the focus. And even if it was it started as a man-made, a fairly ambitious but a little crazy projects, it really became really a sanctuary for biodiversity with like a strong natural element. And I think that's the interesting contrast that you feel at the Buttes Chaumont. So lots of colors. This is at spring with a cherry tree and a cedar from Lebanon. Another beautiful tree. That's one of my pictures. It was just such a striking, and this is just only a few of the incredible trees that you'll find at the Buttes Chaumont. And I think of all the reasons to go to the Buttes Chaumont is just to enjoy nature. It's a rare pleasure in Paris, and it's incredible. Beautiful. This is also my picture. It's a beautiful flowers. Unfortunately, in terms of names of flowers, I'm very ignorant, so I can't give you the names of these flowers, but they were just so beautiful. The orange, the red, the blue, other more flowers, also very beautiful. And so it just is such a charming place. Also, you have, so I did not really explain it enough, but really when you are at the level of the lake, you're on the lower part of the Buttes Chaumont. If you go on the other side, you're going up, and you find yourself on the upper part. And there really is a steep hill, which is where the quarry was. That's where the cliff was. And when you're on top of the Buttes Chaumont, you have a beautiful view. So you see all the rolling the hills and the green hills that are where people can sit and have picnics and enjoy the sun. Beautiful trees everywhere, and you have beautiful views of the northern part of the city. So really a striking place, and I highly recommend it next time you're in Paris. So we're going to go quickly around in the Rue de la Villette, which is a small neighborhood, very different from the Buttes Bergères, very different from the Rue Manin. Here you have really, this is working class, like not anymore, but it used to be, even when Rue Manin was being developed, even when Rue Bergères, this was working class. So you have modest, simple buildings. A lot of them were not necessarily in great shape, so a lot of them were destroyed and replaced by more modern architecture. So you have really a mosaic of many different architectural styles. And I stressed that at the beginning. That's what really characterizes the 19th, is this diversity of styles, and you really have it at the Rue de la Villette. I don't have that many photos, unfortunately, and we have to kind of move forward, but you'll find them in the presentation. But I really wanted to give you a kind of a look at the Villa de l'Adour. So villa is of course like a mansion in French, but it's also the word that's used to to indicate like a closed neighborhood, a gated neighborhood. So this is closed off to the public, and you have again small houses, a different feel from the rest of Paris. Beautiful colors. And you also have so this is like, because it's a working class, it attracted a lot of artists, a lot of architects. So you have this very odd house with a huge chimney built on top and through the roof and into the house. It's a very famous architect called Jérôme Ménager who built it. Unfortunately, you can't visit it, but you can see it from miles, not miles away, but hundreds of meters away. It really is very striking, and also an interesting feature of the neighborhood. Here, like a very run-of-the-mill modern architecture, but you see that a lot everywhere in this neighborhood. And great places to eat. So I kind of forgot about it last time when we were in the 5th. I really wanted to focus again, give you some areas where you could find good food, great produce. And here, this is one of the best vegetarian restaurants in Paris. I've eaten there. It's very good, very friendly. It's also a working space, so you can work and eat and enjoy the food. So I don't know if it's like a pun on hello, but it's Helou, and a great place. And another very good restaurant is called Sauce or Saucesse, and I think that's slang for friends. I have no idea where that slang is coming from, but that's what I read. And it's strange because it's like a very simple building, but they have incredible seafood. It's known all over Paris for their seafood dishes. And it's shellfish. It's a little mistake on the slides, but very good, very good. If you like seafood and shellfish, it's definitely a place to discover. Both restaurants are very close to each other. And I know this place because I used to live on Rue La Villette a long time ago. And it was already there at the time. So again, there's a lot of artists. It's like a lot of neighborhoods in Paris. There's like a strong village life. You have everything. You have the restaurants, you have the produce, the markets, but you also have art and museums. That's very much something that's very part of the Parisian experience. The existence and the presence of art everywhere you go. So there is something called the Plateau, Rue des Alouettes, which offers very interesting, very challenging like contemporary art exhibitions. And the focus of the Plateau is to, of course, help young artists. And you see essentially young artists being shown in the museum, and also they help curators, people who collect art to get their start, so that the conversation between artists and curator happens. It's a very interesting place. Can't say I love everything they do, but I found that very, very, very interesting. A lot of pieces, a lot of installations, very contemporary, a little sometimes obscure, but interesting nonetheless. Sorry about the quality of some of the pictures, but unfortunately, those are pictures I took directly from the internet. So now we're going to go to another neighborhood. So kind of a lot of walk. We were like the first 2 times it was like the walking was limited, but here you are going through kind of a lot of different areas. So there is a lot of walking involved. So we're going to see another beautiful neighborhood called le Quartier de la Moussaïa. So the Moussaïa is even more than La Butte Bergère, is really a village within the city. It really, you have cobble alleys, beautiful houses, unusual architecture. Again, it's one of the best kept secrets of the capital. Although it's not that much of a secret, everybody knows about the Quartier de la Moussaïa because it's so prominently featured in many magazines and in many documentaries. again, it's the same story. They were working class neighborhoods, and because they were built on top of quarries, they could not build high, like tall buildings or big houses. So they decided to build small townhouses, what we call in French pavillons, and that's where the look and feel of this neighborhood comes from. Is from basically constraint, emerges beauty and exception. So I'm just going to go through. So this is like probably the most famous building. It's called the Hameau de Danube, because Danube is the Danube River, and like one of the big streets of this neighborhood is called Rue Danube. So you can see it's a very small. I mean, it's probably like, I don't know if it's like 700 square feet. It's I think you're being very optimistic. It's a very tiny, but it's full of interesting. So here you're very much in like the 1910s, 1920s, a lot of cubist, geometric explorations in terms of architecture. Kind of also taking advantage of the fact that you have very little space. So why not experiment? This beautiful, like called the Villa Fontenay, which is completely blue. Again, I feel that there's kind of like a chalet, Swiss German feel with these slanted roofs. Again, here also like a very surprising architecture, which kind of like brings like the roundness of Art Nouveau with kind of like the extreme geometry of Art Deco. And just next to it, you basically have a German house next to it. So very eclectic, very interesting. And here, this beautiful blue house that seems to be, come out of a Hansel and Gretel, a fairy tale. I mean, it really is remarkable to have that in Paris. So I think we kind of have to like admire the diversity and the authenticity of it, like the way like it offers like a completely different experience of Paris to the people exploring this neighborhood. So this is like I try to find information for it. I don't know why this is such a prominent villa, because it is prominently featured, but I think it's like an interesting architectural project. It's not as striking as the other buildings, but it's of interest. And here again, this side, like the picture is not great, but here the cobblestone streets. Really, you have the feeling that you are in a village. With like small houses, lots of trees. And here you have, and even the cats are happy. See how a cat that can lie in the middle of the street in Paris, that is rare. He doesn't have any worries. He knows no cars are going to come and bother him. Nobody's going to come and bother him. So he is very, very happy. And so we just have one more stop. So I'll just go to the stop and maybe we can take a few more questions after that. So I wanted to kind of end with like, again, on this theme of, so we had the theme of nature. We had this theme of, diverse architecture kind of all blending in together. And also the theme of, oddities, strange places. And this is definitely one of them. I remember again with the same friend that, made me discover la Butte Bergère. He made me discover this Saint-Serge de Radonèche. So this is like an Orthodox church. So it's like the second Orthodox church in Paris. And what's really striking is not the fact that it's an Orthodox church, but first of all, is that from the outside, you only see a building. You have to go in. You have to go in the building, and then you find yourself in an open area, and you find yourself seeing this. So it is, you're transported to Russia all of a sudden, and it's a little unsettling, not because of what's happening in Ukraine and Russia right now, but it's just unsettling to just all of a sudden see like a wooden church. I mean, although they're like bricks, it's mainly a wooden church, like most churches in Russia. So it has this, it's very, you feel like you're transported somewhere without really knowing. And also, although you can't see it here, when I went there was an actual pope or priest, but I think they're called pope in Orthodox liturgy. And so he was a very imposing man with this big, like long beard and long black robe. And you felt like, and with the incense, it was like really quite remarkable. So here you really see, like, again, it's a modest church, but if you see the details inside, it's quite beautiful, with like beautiful details, beautiful woodwork, beautiful colors. So again, this is like the second Orthodox church in Paris. I think it's mainly for, I think there's like a big Bulgarian and Ukrainian community around here. So I think that's where most of the parishioners come from. It's also like a very important, so although it's only the second biggest Orthodox church in Paris, it's the biggest seminary that they train priests, and these priests, are I guess their worth is known from all over the world. So it really is it's a well-known center for priests in the Orthodox faith. So here, I mean, like, I find this like beautiful, like the glass work, the ceilings are really richly decorated, like very warm, very vibrant colors. And again, this is in the middle of Paris. And again, I don't think anybody knows, I mean, obviously the people, pray at the church know about it, but I don't think anybody else does. And I think this is really like what I love about the 19th is that, wherever you go, you're always going to find something surprising. Even though you are surrounded by kind of dull and boring buildings, inside of those buildings, there's something extraordinary. So it really is quite a remarkable area. And I definitely recommend you visit it next time you're in Paris. So we're going to end, and I'm sorry to have been so chatty and kind of very kind of running late, but I want to end here with like la mairie du 19e, so the town hall of the 19th. So Paris is divided into 20 arrondissements, which are big quarters or big districts of the city, and each district has a mayor and a town hall or town. I said town hall, and they're all built in the same style. But this is definitely one of the nicer ones, and I think, I don't know all of them, but I think this is probably of all the ones I know, I think it's my favorite one. It's much nicer than the one in the 18th, which is a little depressing and dull. This is like a very well-preserved, beautiful end of the 19th century building. It's functional, but what it does well. So, and I think that's maybe like the way I would like to end the presentation. The 19th it's slightly functional because it's very residential. So it's there to, provide housing to people, but what it does really well. There. And thank you for your time, and thank you for your attention. I hope I wasn't too
It was fine, James. It was fine. Thank you so much. Does anybody have a question? If somebody has a question, please unmute yourself.
Okay, let me.
There was something in the chat. Claire who wanted to know what the closest metro stations are to the area that you're referring to.
So that's one of the issues with the 19th. It's complicated to get there because, as I said, it's a little isolated. So the best way to go there is either to take line 11.
You mean the Metro line 11?
Metro line 11 that goes from Châtelet to Porte des Lilas, which, you know, will bring you to Métro Pyrénées, like the Pyrenees mountain range, or Jourdain, like Jordan, on line 11. And then you can walk to the Buttes Chaumont, or you can take line 5, which goes to Métro Lumière, L-A-U-M-I-E-R-E, Lumière. And then if you really want another oddity of, well, maybe like oddity of the 19th, is that there's like a small metro line that leaves from Jaurès and that runs around the Buttes Chaumont and loops back and goes back to Jaurès. So it's the smallest metro line in Paris, and it's only one way, and it's only one train going in one direction. But it's I mean, if you're interested in metros and, you know, that type of thing, it's interesting.
Absolutely. Any other question? Karine has a question. Go ahead, Karine. Are you unmuted?
Well, is there a bus that goes into the 19th? And also, could James say again the name of the seafood restaurant in the Quartier de Moussan?
The name, it's Rue de la Villette, and it's Process. It's S-O-C-E-S.
Okay.
S-O-C-E-S. And
S-O.
What did I say?
No. I'm spelling it wrong. S-O-C-E-S. That go. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
No. I put it in there.
Let me go back. Not too far away. I can give you the address. It's 32 Rue de la Villette.
And this presentation is being recorded, and I will create a YouTube video with this presentation. So there will be a link available to watch it again if you care to do that. In the same YouTube channel, there are as well the first 2 presentations that James made, the one from the 18th and the other one from the 5th arrondissement. So you can just send me an email and I'll be happy to share those links with you. Anybody else?
Victoria.
We.
I don't know, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. I don't know who's
Okay.
speaking, but go ahead.
Yeah, well, I'm Diane.
Bonjour, Diane.
Oui, bonjour.
Bonjour, Diane.
Bonjour. Est-ce que les Buttes Chaumont, is it popular now with?
Oh, yes. Well, I mean, it has become, it's still a fairly isolated part of the city. So people who live there tend to stay there. I mean, when I lived there, going to the center of Paris and going to the western part of the city was more complicated. So because it was more complicated, you tended to stay in the eastern part of the city. But it's very popular because it's still, even though, of course, the Butte Bergère and all these beautiful houses are very expensive, it's still one of the cheaper parts of the city. So you can
You say complicated because there's no direct metro line. You have to make a connection.
You have one metro line, but you know, you always, if you want to go to the eastern part of this, the western part of the city, you have to change metros at least once and maybe twice.
I wonder if being able to
rare.
work remotely makes a difference.
Oh, sure. I mean, but I think it's all things considered, I mean, people would move there, but it's, you know, when I remember when I moved from the 18th to the 19th, there was a change in the time, the amount of time it took to go to work. It was more complicated, and because the metro is what it is, meaning great but incredibly regular, it just turned the whole experience into something different, which was not always very pleasant. So but that was just the metro. The living there was great.
Well, thank you. It was just excellent. Everything was excellent.
Yes, definitely. Thank you very much, James. One last chance for a question before we leave. I'm not hearing any voices. I don't see any hands raised. Ah, Stephanie.
I don't know the name of the street, James, but it seemed like it had something to do with blue. And it was near the end, and it looked like the houses had garages along the sidewalk. Is that true? Could they be a garage?
Oh, man,
Yeah.
probably, yeah, probably, yes. Yeah, I mean, like.
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you're talking about, Stephanie. Yeah, there'd be a garage there, and then you know, the garage door, there'd be a sign, you know, so that you don't park in front of the garage.
I
And
didn't
if
know.
you park in front of the garage, your
Oh, yeah,
your
I
car's gonna
mean-
get towed away. So
When it comes to the 19th, I think anything is possible because there probably were less zoning laws and less architectural projects. So really, if you go from like the 7th, where like everything is, you know, beautiful but extremely kind of like homogeneous and uniform, and you go to the 19th, like, no, there's a lot of diversity. So basically any type of project was at one point probably feasible. So yes, I would say it's probably, you're right. You know, there was probably a garage. And as I said, there are like probably a lot more oddities and strange architectural choices that were made in the neighborhood.
there is a question about the YouTube channel. I believe, and I'll have to confirm this, but I believe it's just the Alliance Française de Tucson's YouTube channel. I can't imagine that I would have named it anything else other than that. So you'll be able to, you should be able to find it if you do a search on YouTube. And if not, just send me an email and I'll be happy to share the link.
Oh, très bien.
Et voilà, tout le monde.
Merci.
James is cogitating and you know, figuring out what he would like to present next time. So we will
Again,
have
we're gonna
something
go
else
through
for you in about 3 months.
The overarching theme here is places where I've lived. So
I can't
So-
imagine.
so-
We're running out.
so we're running out. I mean, I live in several places, but not that many. So we'll see.
You're gonna have to think outside the box, James. You're gonna have to
You
go.
better start
Yes.
Next
packing.
venture, you better move. You gotta
Yeah.
move.
Yes,
That's
I'm
what
going to
you
start
gotta do.
moving just for Balade Parisienne, so I have something new to say each time.
Thank you so much, James.
Thank
And
you.
Thank
for
you
your
so
attention.
much
And
to
thank you for your
everyone
questions.
who joined
Un
us.
grand
I hope you-
merci. Merci
I
encore
hope you
une fois.
enjoyed it. And we'll be happy to see you again in a few months.
Yes.
Très bien.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Merci, merci.
Merci à vous.
Bonne soirée à tout le monde.